Politics. I'm your host, Darlene Price, and welcome. Before we get started, we want to say very special thanks to MBR TV and our owner-operator on television land, Steve Hall, our hero, and of course, all the folks behind the scene that make Truth or Politics happen. We want to say thank you so much, and our technical genius behind the scene. He's shaking his head no, but we all know he's a genius. It makes Truth or Politics go all the time. We want to thank everybody. We got new watchers tonight from all over the place. We want to say welcome to Truth or Politics. Before we get started, I want to introduce a couple of guests here and why they're here, okay? We started covering along with Crime with Bobby, and I just want to say, Bobby, he has done a great job. If you get a chance, go over to Crime with Bobby. He's done a really good job covering the Doug Harless shooting. And what happened over there in London, Kentucky is the police officers at midnight at night over a weed eater go to the wrong address and serve a warrant. And basically there's an old man there, and they go in on the warrant at the wrong address and shoot this guy and kill him. The whole neighborhood up there, and rightfully so, is upset. The investigation is lackluster so far, at the very least. The relatives, the community's not getting any answers. It looks bad. It looks bad on the community. It looks bad on the mayor, the city council. It's very reminiscing of a lot of stuff that's happened in other counties, and it's very reminiscing of another whistleblower that I have interviewed at length. In fact, for 25 years we fought Jim Fowler's case together.
Right.
And he was indicted. How many times were you indicted?
7.
7 times, incarcerated, I don't know how many times, and finally we won a huge case against the federal government, against the FBI. In fact, the federal judge, which never happens, dismissed the case against the FBI with prejudice once we proved after 20 years that they were just harassing Jim and committing criminal acts against him. So I'm not going to get into too much of his story. I'm going to post the link to his story because I've already interviewed him for a whole hour on one other occasion. But I've got him here because there's another whistleblower here tonight, okay? He has an amazing story. And it's very similar. Jim's is more long 20 years and at the federal level, but my guest here tonight, his is on the local level, and it's out of the same county. It's out of Laurel County. So we want to welcome Rick tonight. And what's your last name again?
Coffman.
Coffman. That's right. I'm sorry, I'm terrible with names. I've only got it written down here 10 times. Anyway, Rick Coffman tonight is here. And I want to kind of get into his story, and Jim's going to help me interview you too as well. But to get started, Mr. Coffman, you were basically a very successful businessman. Okay, very successful businessman, and no problems up until this point. I mean, you've never been in any real trouble. Yeah, back in high school, maybe some kid stuff, but no criminal record, nothing. He moves to London, Kentucky. He starts his business there. He moved from Versailles,
Right.
And then you get involved, and there's a domestic situation and a property dispute, basically is what it was.
Right.
And then because this property dispute, false accusations are filed against you, and then I want you to kind of start from there. So.
Well, it all started with the dispute one day. On trying to get some belongings off the property, and some people showed up unannounced, and they were very threatening and all that. And then the sheriff's department was called out. They came out, and then they rescheduled it for the very next day. And we get everything ready, and the next day, instead of them coming to remove the stuff off my property, I get served with an EPO order.
Okay, so they were ordered to remove their stuff off of your property, okay?
Right.
And so
Well, they showed up unannounced, and then the sheriff's deputy scheduled a time for them just to come back the very next day. I had no problem, letting them have their stuff. They just showed up unannounced, and they were very threatening.
Okay, so then the next day, what happens?
Then the next day I get served with a EPO. I don't get any knowledge of it. I'm not told anything. I don't get any paperwork whatsoever. And so, I spend the whole weekend. It's like till the next week I go find out. And it turns out there's some false accusations, but there were no actual accusations of any threats or any violence. So I wasn't violent and threats. More of the biggest accusation was that I was withholding property. And, I've had that person was getting property for the previous 6 months, coming up. They just showed up unannounced, threatening like mad. There was 6 inches of snow. They took out the neighbor's cable, got this big 26-foot U-Haul stuck. And then, so they were supposed to come the next day, and they didn't come. So we ended up going into court, and then next thing I know, the judge is pretty much like, you could just go downstairs. I'm not an attorney, I can't tell you, but you could just go file an EPO, and you'd pretty much probably get it. So
For you to file EPO on them.
Yeah, so I filed an EPO on the other party.
Let me ask you something. Was the person living with you that filed the EPO against you?
The person never lived with me. Originally, we were buying the house together.
At the time that the EPO was filed?
At any time, never lived with
That's
me.
an illegal EPO right there.
You can't file an
You
EPO.
can't file an EPO.
But
Now, she lived 2 hours away in Pikeville. I'm pretty sure you're supposed to...
no, it's cohabitation, meaning in the same house. Now, it can
Well,
be a family member or a wife or...
Well, she did put down on there that we were spouse, like we were married. We weren't. So she put some false information on the
Okay,
actual
let me
EPO.
ask you something. In this, our nation's talking about lawfare right now. Are you familiar with the term?
Yeah.
They're using the courts and false charges and false investigations, false lawsuits. Darlene, does this sound familiar?
That's why I have you here tonight, Jim. You've been through it.
All kidding aside, I've probably been through a couple hundred lawsuits because of fighting to try to get my rights back. And it worked eventually. Darlene put up with threats on her life, attempts and everything else. I did. There's other things that have happened in mind that the other film she's going to attach this. But so you're telling me they're using the court system, weaponizing it against you, is that right?
Correct.
Are you under any threat right now?
I receive all kinds of threats through emails.
Let me ask you this. Are you under any threat from the courts or any prosecutors or any police?
Well, malicious prosecution. They're coming after me, throwing the book, and they stripped a lot of my rights away, which, we get into the story.
Are you under charges now?
Yeah, I'm under felony criminal mischief for false accusations that I did damage to the house the day that I was given a few hours to get out.
All right. Well, and you were given a few hours to get out, and this is where you were living?
Yep, for a year.
Were the utilities in your name?
Yes.
So did they evict you?
No.
No eviction notice.
No eviction.
Nope. So he wasn't even gonna let me go back to the house, but I was like, "Could I go at least go get my dogs?" And then he thought about it for a minute. He even started off that court with, "To those that didn't agree to the 3-year DVO mutual, you're going to see what kind of mood I'm in today." And then he proceeded to not allow me to submit any evidence because I had plenty of proof and evidence that we obviously had a deal and a contract on the house. And then I lived there. All the utilities were in my name. It was just the other person had her own home 2 hours away and would just every now and then come over and stay. But really for the previous few months leading up to this, we really didn't see much of each other at all. So.
But you had been in a dating relationship.
Yes.
Then the APO's legal.
Even though she's not living
They
there?
have to be living there, Michael. But
He does EPOs all the time here, so he would know.
And just a dating relationship is all that's required.
was a dating relationship terminated?
Yes.
Okay, so it was terminated.
And from what I gather, you're supposed to file an EPO in the county in which you reside, like not go to another actual.
Was she ever a resident of that house?
Never.
So they kicked you out of your property because she wanted a DVO from you.
Not only the property, but I put all the money down on the house. I made all the mortgage payments straight to the bank. Not even to her. They went straight to the bank. All the utilities were in my name. Oh, and then I built a 8,500 square foot building. It cost me over $100,000
On the same property?
on that property. And
That sounds so much like you, I swear. Folks, when you're done with this, you gotta go to YouTube, and I'll post the link, and
it's an interesting story. I watched
watch Truth or Politics, Jim Fowler, my interview with Jim Fowler, because this is why I have him on here. This is just way too similar, except Jim's is worse.
Right.
Not that,
No. It is worse. Mine's pretty bad, but somebody's always got it worse.
I hate being a champion, but here's the thing. Do you have representation?
I do. I have a court-appointed attorney that's been doing a pretty good job. It's turned over to the grand jury. We're fast forwarding a little bit there because the day I was out, there was more false accusations that I had punched holes in the ceiling, threw paint everywhere. I had a separate building that I had a lot of my screen printing equipment in, so I took all the breakers out of that building, and I wasn't going to let them have my hot tub, so I took the breaker to my hot tub, and then there was a false accusation, like I cut power to the house, like I did all this horrible damage, and I cut the power. None of it's true. There's no evidence of it whatsoever. On my profile at the top of the page, I go over all the evidence that was provided to me.
But so far, you haven't been able to have a chance to present this evidence. Back up, though, about the night that they arrested you, because I want to back up to that.
Okay.
Explain that night and how for 3 days you had no access to a lawyer, no access to, I mean, just sounds like when they threw you in the hole. I mean.
Yeah. Well, I mean, before that happened, I'd have to say how I had one 38-hour long experience to where these people came back again to get the U-Haul after it had been stuck up there. I mean, this was March of 24. It's huge snowstorm. It was rented by the other party that made the false accusation. And her belongings in the house wouldn't even fill up a van. There was just about 15 boxes in a trailer. So there was not one piece of furniture on the property that was not mine. Everything, everywhere, all the appliances. I just remodeled the house over the year. I built that huge building. I remodeled and installed it.
When you built the building, whose name was the permit in?
Unrestricted, unincorporated. But the contract is in my name for that, and I paid for it. All the money
See,
comes
they
out.
had to evict him. You had to have eviction notice and be evicted, and you had to have a hearing. What was supposed to happen is then you were supposed to have a hearing in court where you could present all of this.
Well, Judge Jones, family court judge, didn't have a problem throwing me off a property she never lived at, and I have a minor son, so the family court judge also made a child homeless as well. We've been living in an RV. If it wasn't for the fact that I just happened to have an RV, because I used to travel around going to off-road parks all over the country. If it wasn't for that RV, I mean, I couldn't even imagine. I had 3 dogs and a kid, and I mean, even the day I moved out and only had 5 hours, I had 2 trailers, a tractor, a van, a Tahoe, an RV, a big truck.
What prosecution was involved in it?
Through most of it, it had been handled by just a regular prosecutor, but
The county attorney?
yeah. No, just the normal one that handles the normal criminal stuff and all that.
That's county attorney.
County attorney, and then the big fancy guy. What was his name? We were just
Steele?
talking. Yeah, Steele.
Commonwealth attorney.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's county attorney.
Okay.
Jackie Steele.
Okay. I'm pretty sure it was him. You know, I'm not
The
from
other
the
reason
area.
We're out here
We're
tonight.
laughing because Jackie Steele, when I started making all the allegations what they were doing to my family and I had forced them to put together a special grand jury. That's when they arrested Judge Miracle because he was going to have me killed.
Yeah.
Okay.
Wow.
Darlene thought I was kidding until she got right in the middle of it. But what happened was they appointed 2 special prosecutors. One of them was Alan Trimble. He's passed away now. Trimble kind of did everything he could to make a charge or case go away and protect the people on the other side. And then Jackie Steele protected the system. He's very big on protecting the system. He doesn't care. From my experience, he doesn't care about anything except protecting the system.
Yeah.
Go back though and talk about, okay, the night you were arrested. I want you.
Well, the night I was arrested was the very next afternoon after I was thrown out of my house.
Right.
And so yeah, I was given 5 hours. I got everything. Of course, now I have all these vehicles, and it's not like I didn't have anywhere to go. So a neighbor let me use their field, and we were parking all the stuff right there. Of course, they're acting like I'm stalking and all that. I have nowhere to go with a dozen vehicles and trailers and all that. So they come, and then they had a warrant, just arrested me.
Okay,
Who's
they?
The sheriff's department.
Okay.
The Laurel County Sheriff's Department. Almost all the calls, which there had been over 40 911 calls made.
During that time frame that you're trying to get your stuff out.
During just a few particular nights, of a few instances.
Who was making the calls?
The other party that makes the false accusations is making these calls. And not one time did they ever arrest me. It was after, first they did the violation of a DVO that I damaged his property on the way out. And then they threw me in jail, okay, put me in a little cell. And then all that night, all the next day, and then, I mean, I was like beating on the door. It stunk in there. It was terrible. Nobody would answer any questions. They wouldn't tell me anything.
So you were
In an isolation cell.
isolation cell, no phone call, no access to a lawyer for almost 3 days.
Did you yell that you wanted a lawyer?
Yeah.
What do they say when you want to know?
Man, they just walk away. It was finally Saturday morning.
What jail were you in?
I was in Laurel County.
Laurel County
Do
Jail.
you know when the grand jury is supposed to hear your case?
Well, I thought about 3 months ago. So I keep traveling up here to Kentucky, and then they call
Keep
50,
stringing it along.
they call 30 some odd people's names and say, come back next month. And so I've done that 3 times so far.
There's a process that you need to talk to your lawyer about.
Okay.
And that process is you notify the Commonwealth Attorney that you want to talk to the grand jury. And he has to tell the grand jury that you want to talk to him. They don't have to hear you,
Okay.
but he has to tell them. So you need to talk to your lawyer about that.
Okay.
And I've used that several times, and it shuts things down, but it can also be a problem because I'll tell you about this Steele guy. He's not straight up. He's not.
Not too many around that county are.
Well, I don't know about the county, but I know him. And I know what you can expect. And he'll do everything he can to obstruct you from being heard by the grand jury, from getting your story out. All he wants is an indictment so they can twist your arm with it or twist your neck with it.
Right.
You know, and I can just see this being pled down to a misdemeanor from a felony so that you can't sue them. You know, because right now I'm listening to a
A
pile.
huge lawsuit.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, I might
you've
remind
got
you
a huge
that I never
lawsuit.
actually committed any crimes.
Right.
I've never made any threats. I've never been violent in
and
any
also
way.
he told me before the show, the whole time that this was going on, the 6 hours or whatever, and all this is going on, and the sheriff's coming out, and the intimidation, he's filming all this. So he's got 6
Okay.
hours of filming.
I did.
Make sure it's secure. But the other thing I
Well-
want to ask you, just so that your audience knows, you don't have a criminal history.
No.
You know, you.
No, I've been a businessman. See, I'm not known in London at all because I moved in March. We closed on the house in March of 23. I built this huge 8,000 square, not 8,500 square foot building, and then moving out of this 12,000 square foot building that I'd been in over a decade. I've been in this huge building right in the heart, right by the biggest Kroger in Kentucky, at the heart of Rochelle. Moving out of
exactly
there.
where you're talking
Yeah,
about.
you drive right out. There's this huge building. That was my building for 12 years. Since like 12 or something like that. And so, like, London doesn't know who I am, so these false accusations are made, and they just think I'm just like some druggie or I'm some criminal or something like that. I'm definitely getting treated as such. And this is all mind-blowing to me because, you know, I've been in the court systems with family and all that stuff. You know, I even had custody of a child that wasn't biologically mine for years. So I'm pretty familiar with all this stuff.
The other thing you're going to find out, especially in Kentucky, the legal system is 99% political.
It is.
There's very little fact or law that matters in the courts in Kentucky. You know, we were talking about my mess. Alan Trimble, the prosecutor from London is the one that prosecuted a false IRS case against me. And they claimed I didn't file my tax returns. I did, but they stole them and hid them. And now that's all being dealt with. But these two prosecutors were involved in the kidnapping of a witness.
From what I understand, these prosecutors have been there for a while. These judges have been there for a while. They run unopposed.
Yeah, they don't care.
You know, and I hear, you know, people getting.
This is exactly what I talk about. I'm going to plug my new book for you guys. It's coming out next month. It was supposed to be this month, but actually delayed the coming out of this book because I wanted to cover a little bit of the Doug Harless shooting and also what's happening in Letcher County. And my girl over there, you got to go to Hillbilly Crime. She's done a really good job, okay? Elizabeth, Hillbilly Crime. I post all of her stuff. She's a podcaster, and she's got a degree in criminal justice, and she's really doing a great job covering that. But I cover those two cases. Also, I kind of delayed the book so I could cover a little bit of those two cases in this. And what he's talking about, folks, this is not isolated, okay? Pulaski County's got similar stuff going on, and I really go into detail in this book of the greed, the cronyism, the cliques. So that's what happens in a lot of these counties in Kentucky. It's not just London, Kentucky.
It's not just Kentucky either.
It's not just Kentucky
It's a national problem.
It's a national problem.
The system is trying to rule the people, and we got a fight right now between the courts and the White House and the people, and that's really how it goes down. Have you ever told your audience what your background really is?
Well,
Do people know? I mean, it's major league. People, this lady made one of the largest drug busts in U.S. history, and she was a major league federal agent. And then the feds turned on her because she exposed things they didn't want exposed, and she wrote a book about it called Bordergate.
Yeah.
And let me tell you, when the chips are down, and I've had to be side by side with her in some situations before, she don't run. And you know, we've dealt with cops with guns. We've dealt with all kinds of stuff.
We've been followed. We've been chased.
I'm catching up to you guys. I got some death threats, and then there's a lot of fake profiles in London, just slandering people, threatening.
Yeah.
Somebody got arrested the other day.
What we don't want to have happen to you is that you catch up to any one of us.
Yeah.
I'd rather not.
You know,
I mean, I couldn't imagine 20 years. This last year, bouncing around in my RV with my son, having to travel from up to 6-hour round trip to come to court a dozen times. I mean, how am I supposed to get back to making a living?
That in and of itself is a form of harassment.
Oh,
It
yeah.
is.
Sure.
Continue.
And that's a lot of what they did to Jim.
Yeah, she
No speedy trial.
she doesn't look that age, but we've been doing this. You got to understand, this started in '93 with me. Today's 25, so that's 32 years, not 20.
I hope to
The
have this
first
wrapped
time-
up before it's that long. You're scaring me, bud.
The first time he and I had touched base, and I'd heard about his story and everything, and I did my research and everything, this is the first time and this is on the interview with Jim Fowler too, but I got to touch on this a little bit. First time I go to Jim Fowler's house, his office, okay, I go upstairs, and there's this sheriff and 2 deputies
Yep.
and the mayor. And they're up there like, you guys got to help us, And I'm like, well, what's going on here? And Jim would give me a little bit of background. And the sheriff comes up and hands me a 15-page affidavit of all the corruption that's going on over there.
That's right.
And first off, cops don't come out against cops, usually.
No.
That never happens.
Nope.
You got a sheriff with a 15-page and 2 deputies saying, this guy, he's corrupt, he's this and this, and just abuse of authority and police brutality. And I'm like, I'm just like, what the hell have I just walked into? And then again, a mayor saying.
And the mayor tells her that the chief of police was talking about sniping her, assassinating him from the parkway.
Yeah,
Wow.
and he says, you can't tell nobody that I'm here. You know, he's literally afraid for his life. Okay, that's how bad. This is day one.
This sounds like organized crime.
So I leave that meeting. I pull out. I make a turn. The cops are on me. Okay, so
A lot of them.
Here we go. So I'm being followed from
By a
Jim.
lot of cops.
So I'm being followed. So I get on the phone to my husband, who at that time was county attorney. And I get on the phone with him, and I'm like, okay, here we go. I said, because I thought they were going to pull me over and try to do a false arrest or whatever. And I was mad, and I'm like, this is bullshit. Oh, excuse me. Bull crap. To the TV
I feel you,
audience.
honey.
Sorry, Steve.
It is.
There we go. I'm going to get a fine from television. We're on television, too, so I can't
It's
say
Michael Moore's problem.
Sorry, Steve. Okay, bull crap. So I'm being followed, and way out of their jurisdiction. Okay, so now I'm on Highway 80 in Pulaski County. They're not even in their county anymore. Finally, they peel off because I'm just ready to be lit up, and I'm like, I'm going to jail because I was mad. That was. So then, to me, it was like, oh, it's on.
Mm-hmm.
It's on.
But you know, you have to understand something. If you're on the other end of a case,
Yeah.
as much as I hate to say this, you've got to find the right lawyer because it's a team, it's a club, it's an organized crime. The greatest organized crime this nation has ever seen is the United States judicial system, bar none. I don't care where you are, what system you're in, they're all crooked. And that.
Well, not all of them.
No, I'm talking about as
A majority
the system.
these
You know,
days.
Now
That's a good
I will
one,
tell
Gary.
you, I've known 2 prosecutors in my life, 2 that were honest. One is your husband, and they don't get any better than him. But the other one was the U.S. attorney
That's right.
in Augusta, Georgia, that when they indicted me the 7th time, him and the FBI told Kentucky, you're not touching this guy. And this was the FBI in Louisville.
Okay.
They told him, you're not touching this guy. He's an innocent victim. All you're doing is arresting him.
Well, we had the honest judge and prosecutor out of Louisville that did dismiss your case with prejudice against the FBI.
That was the prosecutor.
Oh, that was the
yeah,
same.
right. That was Amanda Gregory.
Amanda
They don't get any better than her. And she turned over evidence to me showing what they were doing to sabotage my defense in the garbage IRS trial.
Well, and they were following from the Louisville case that we were fighting at that time. I had him over in Pulaski County following me, that FBI agent
That's right.
stalking me in Walmart and following me.
That's right.
So
So
we
what we're telling you is, you
Scaring the
started,
crap out of me.
you started with a
This
domestic.
just the beginning.
Well, we started with it. And remember, all forest fires start with a spark.
Yes.
Yeah, that's it.
Yes.
And how hot that fire burns is how much extinguisher you can put on it. You know,
Right.
And illegal cases the same way. I get people that call me every single day and I mean every day. And then my new wife comes home and she's got, oh, I ran into this guy, or I ran into that guy, and this story, and they want to talk to you. And then I go talk to their lawyers. And you know, I work for Justice Posner, or I worked with him, not for him. We were partners for a year. This is the most cited jurist in U.S. history. And this guy said to me, he said, I've never seen the things you come up with. And the reason being, the bar associations in this nation, they're not there to protect you.
No.
Nope.
They don't protect you from the lawyer. They're there to protect the lawyers from you, and especially people like me.
This is why,
No
even though I
accountability.
have a law degree, people always ask, well, I'm like, no, I will not join. You cannot join the Kentucky Bar Association and do what I do. You cannot be an investigative journalist. Here's why. If you did all the stuff that we've exposed, because we've exposed a lot of high-ranking profile people, the Kentucky Bar Association would have come after me. I would have been immediately disbarred. You are not allowed, even
No.
no matter how much proof you have to talk about a judge or anybody like that, if you're an attorney in Kentucky. And so,
Well,
That sounds like that needs to change.
We're not
No
trying to
kidding.
scare you, but we're trying to
No,
tell
I get it.
everybody.
It's just scary sounding what you guys have been through. And I
A
can
good guy
definitely
like
relate.
you, a nice guy like you, that's been honorable in good business and doing good business, they're hammering you for no
Yeah.
reason. And
Well, one of the reasons why I think that they're hammering me is when this started going sideways and I started getting EPO, even when they served me the EPO, I was like, what's going on here? So I filmed it. So I started filming
them.
I started filming them. I've seen enough, what do you call them?
cop shows.
Amendment audit videos and all that stuff. You know,
That's
where
exactly what started this. And
Yeah.
this has nothing to do with the genesis of the domestic thing. This has everything to do with you whipping out a camera and start filming.
and I got some good
Well, that's
footage
what-
on the mayor's nephew, Deputy Weddle, and he came out there and he, without meeting the other party, just talked, not even his phone, somebody else that was there. These were two of my former friends that lived there, and then when this all happened, they both went and lived with her, and then they're helping her do all this stuff. So I was filming it, and then he didn't verify anything. You know, obviously it's my house. Everything there mine. They're coming with the U-Haul. It's my house. He wouldn't remove him for trespass. They're threatening to kill me. They're threatening me. It wasn't until I whipped
you
out a
got this
baseball
all on
bat.
film.
I got it all on film. I got them threatening me, and then Weddle just happens to walk up the driveway like 2 seconds later, like he was all pre-planned ahead of time. Like they don't come out in 60
Well,
seconds.
the other thing is, if they think you have anything, remember something. And boy, is this going to get me in trouble. But lawyers are interested in basically raping your finances.
That's what I feel
That's-
goes in Laurel County. They just want us in the
You
court
know,
system and
I
pay
had
these
somebody
attorneys.
call me today that's losing their house, and she says, this is all going on. The whole thing's crooked. And she says, they want $5,000 to file this one motion.
Mhm.
I'm thinking, it'd take me an hour to file that motion now. I don't know that I could charge $5,000 for it. But this is what they do. When you go to a lawyer, they want to talk about what kind of house you live in, what kind of car you drive, what kind of job you have. Some of them will come right out and say how much money you got. You know, do you have
Right.
any savings? And you know, they're looking to see what they can get. You know, I spent in my divorce and custody and all my defense and everything, I spent $4 million. You know, but
He was one of.
I don't have that kind of money. Which is-
Let me just say, he was one of the fourth richest. He was very wealthy.
I owned the largest internet company in the world at the time called GlobalNet, and there was no other shareholders. And I had 26 companies in Europe, and they never took anything from me. They destroyed everything. I owned an investment bank in Geneva. They destroyed everything, and you know, it wasn't about blackmailing. It was about
Silencing.
silencing.
shutting him up because he was
That's
a
what's happening with me.
whistleblower against the FBI.
Yeah.
My business is 15 years old. For the last 10 years, I did $1.5 to $2.5 million. I did $1 million a year on Amazon. Whole business destroyed in an instant with no due process.
From a political standpoint, I'd love to see the kind of shirts you print, what you print on them.
Yeah.
Did you
Maker's
know-
Mart, Nike, Louisville Basketball Championship, banged out 12,000 shirts overnight.
Politically. Any Trump shirts?
I did previously, and I stopped doing that because first rule of sales, you don't talk about politics, you don't talk about religion. And I felt I was getting hurt on Amazon by having a couple Trump shirts. And it wasn't that I was just a Trump fan. I put every candidate out there. The only one that sold any was Trump. I had a Hillary Clinton shirt. I'm in the business just to sell shirts, but I haven't done any political shirts since that first Trump election.
Well, there is a bunch of executive orders President Trump signed, and I just filed the first one that allows you file a petition. It's a special way to do it. I don't know that most of the lawyers even know what to do with it, but
Right.
It's about if you're being attacked by lawfare. You know, if you get a lawyer that's decent, let me know and I'll turn you on to it.
Like, yeah, well, no, the shirts I did print where I'm from, I printed the DARE shirts for Woodford County Sheriff's Department for over a decade, about 7 different county clerk's offices. Many were sales right down the road for Frankfurt. State fire school, fire departments. I did good work helping the community. I donate every year. I never even told anybody this. I just went and did it. I donate 100 shirts to the fire department every Christmas because I kick butt at Christmas. And I feel like you do good to you, do good to others. What goes around comes around. So
Now, you understand that there's a backlash after you get through this and successfully get through it.
well, I mean, I'm already temporarily staying in Tennessee. I'm afraid to be in that town.
Well,
And a lot of people in London, Kentucky are very afraid. They can come to your door with, I don't know if there's a warrant or not. Nobody seems to know for sure,
Well,
but they can murder you over a weed eater.
Yeah.
You know, does it even matter if it was the right address or not?
Well,
Who's going to show up at the door like SWAT team over a weed eater?
Here's how this goes. I'm now very happily remarried. Okay, my wife passed away as a result of all the crap I've been through.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and Darlene's been along this ride along with some other people, and so before I got remarried, I was dating, and I took a lady out one day, just to dinner. I met her at the political meeting. Beautiful lady, young, not young, but she was in her 40s, and she asked me. She said, "No, don't take me to lunch. Take me to dinner." Next thing you know, there's a local personality who was having an affair with her.
Really?
So he decides to do a 3.5 hour special on me.
3.5 hours.
So I sue, right? Now
Right,
this is when the system fails you. I sue him. So Darlene's scheduled to be testifying in this thing about all the stuff with me, right?
Well, he's trying to say, what he did is a radio show guy, and what he did is he accused Jim of it just being all fake, and it's like, hello, we have a ruling from a federal judge saying that.
Yeah, he said I was acting weird around women, all that kind of stuff. Well, anyway, the judge protected him, and then I ended up having to sue the judge.
Well, he must have been in the clique then, huh?
Well, it finally got settled. I can't comment on it beyond that, but the fact of the matter is this guy is just awful in the community. And, I would go to meetings and people would mention his name and everybody go, oh, no. And that had nothing to do with me, but that's just
right.
what he's representing.
What you're up against, yeah.
But, so he does this, right? Now, this is how things transition. I told you about all the attacks with the government.
Mm-hmm.
He gets on the radio, does this. Next thing you know, I got to knock at the door. It's the FBI. They want to help me. Go after this guy because they want.
Call me FBI.
No, I didn't.
I need help.
Well,
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I had the rare situation of FBI agents and a U.S. attorney who were just stellar, and they, they came back and said, well, they don't want to act on this right now. So I had to sue the people in several courts several times to get this stopped. So the judge throws it out, and it's a cut and dry case. Throws it out. This is where you got to be careful. They throw it out, so that then they want $75,000 in legal fees, and the judge was going to award it. So I sued the judge because she didn't have jurisdiction. She was doing stuff she didn't have jurisdiction for. So, but what I'm saying is, either get ready to become a lawyer, or you better get one and try to make sure that you control the finances.
Well, one of the things I told him too is
Not a bad idea.
claiming
I would go
status
for it.
as whistleblower too. That does afford you some more protection too.
Well,
being a whistleblower. I mean, it does. There's things that you could file as a whistleblower once you declare. And now that you're public, you're on television, you're on this show, and you're official declaring official whistleblower
Yeah,
status.
definitely.
Against,
And blowing the whistle on the corruption in London and Laurel.
And I'll say this: when I started, because I know there's people out there watching saying, man, I wish I could talk. When I started covering the Doug Harless thing, and I'm sure Crime with Bobby can tell you the same thing, people started coming out of the woodwork.
I come after Bobby.
His story is not an isolated incident. Okay, I'm here to tell you I have received many private messages, people scared to death. Oh my gosh, these same people did this kind of thing to me. This and just really laying out A, the mayor, and B, the police. And the mayor's nephew is one of the sheriff, and that's one of the deputies that went after you too. The sheriff, Mayor Reynolds, the sheriff deputy. So
Mine's more with the sheriffs and the court and the judges, because I personally think all corruption, the core of it is judges. If it wasn't for the judges, it would not be possible.
Amen.
well, there's
Right?
some good judges though too. I'll say.
I've seen
no
good
question
judges.
about
Man, I was awarded custody of a child that wasn't biologically
You got
mine, so there
one
are
here.
fair judges. Fayette County was good. Woodford County was good.
We got good judges
Laurel?
here, I gotta
Nope.
say, and I gotta say, and I talk about this in my next book while no one's watching.
Coming soon.
Coming soon. But Judge Whitaker in Pulaski County, and I say this in the book, she's going to be the saving grace of Pulaski County because she really, I would not have the evidence that I had on missing evidence and all the stuff that went on up there in Pulaski County with the cops. Had Judge Whitaker not made the rulings that she did and forced them to open up, to cough up evidence. So there's some really, really good judges. There's some bad ones too. The one that tried to, we had one trying to kill him, and he was eventually arrested though too. What Miracle!
Judge
Oh
Miracle,
my God!
Cletus Miracle.
Put
He was
it
from
in
Clay
this
County.
element.
I had forced a special grand jury to investigate on corruption, and that's part of the Steele thing. And I noticed that everybody was going in with cell phones. I thought, this is not right. So I subpoenaed everybody's cell phone records, and the judge was involved in all the communications. So they're going to hold me in contempt. And the next thing you know, he decided he wasn't going to, then he decided he was going to. And before he got to lock me up and have me killed while I was being held, that was the plan. FBI agent, Tim Briggs from London over here calls me, he says, he didn't say Mr. Fowler, he said, Jim, which is weird, I said, yeah. He says, Tim Briggs, FBI London. I said, London where? He said, London, Kentucky. I said, what's up? He said, you don't have a hearing on Saturday. I said, why is a federal or a FBI call me about a state proceeding? And he told me, he said they had arrested Judge Miracle and that he was, that they
I'd love to see that. That was a good day, wasn't it?
Oh, I called her, she thought I was lying. She thought I was joking.
Joking, I thought
Yeah,
joking.
and when I called Vince, the same thing. Vince said, he said, yeah, nice one, that's funny. I said, Vince, I'm telling you. Vince called me back, he had his paralegal look it up, and he called me back 10 minutes later. He goes, oh my God. I said, you should have been on the call with me with the FBI.
One time, he calls me one time. This is right after we started swinging the bat over there, man. He calls me up. He goes, get over here. There's going to be a hearing. So I go in there, and there's this guy on the stand. This is in Russell County, and the guy's describing a murder for hire. How one of the local cops
Howard
was trying to hire him.
I've heard numerous
Murder for
suspicious suicides, numerous in London happening.
See, and I'm getting information on that too. I'm
Yeah.
getting the
There's
people
no
think-
checks and
In
balances.
the jail, other ones. A couple of them have been some pretty big nationwide news.
Yeah.
Like big TV shows doing on
The point I'm going to make is what's happening to this poor guy is not an isolated incident, and I know that there's a lot of people over in London who are afraid, and I'll say this, there's an old saying, you can't fight City Hall. I disagree with that. You can. One of the things he's doing right is the safest place to be is in the light. Okay? Once you're in the light, okay, then it's harder for them to do stuff, okay? And they still can, but it's harder.
It'd be pretty obvious.
It'd be pretty obvious, okay? And
For the record, I'm not suicidal, and I'm pretty happy. Other than the situation, I'm spending time with my son. I'm happy, everybody. So if something happens to me,
yeah.
I'm just dealing with a bad
You know,
situation. But I'm gonna, like anything else, I'm gonna get through it.
I hate to tell you, but that's very wise to feel that way and say that because,
Well, I do.
I've flown planes for a long time, and everybody would say to me, her husband would say to me, aren't you worried they might try to sabotage your plane or something? And that was a very real concern, you know.
I know.
Because
We're
all it would all go away, right?
No, one time they flew with me.
we okay. My brother Harvey, for those of you who have been watching the show for years, you remember Harvey.
Take all you out the plane.
He's watching tonight. We love you, Harvey. We
Love
miss
you,
you.
Harvey, miss you.
But so we're flying to D.C. because we started working with GAP, the Government Accountability Project, and Project on Government Oversight. I've testified 3 times before U.S. Congress as a whistleblower, and so we're going over trying to get them to help us over here. So we've got this big meeting with the 2 biggest whistleblower organizations in D.C. and nationwide, and I have been on radio shows with them and everything. So we're flying there, and Harvey's. My husband's with us, Harvey's with us, and you and me, right? I think that's
I was a pilot.
He was a pilot. Okay, so he foolishly, Harvey's dying right now. I know my brother's saying, "Oh no, she ain't gonna tell the story." So Harvey's like, and we're worried about this. We're in the thick of this fight with Jim, with these cops and stuff, and so Harvey's like, "Well, I'm gonna learn how to fly." So Jim lets Harvey take the cockpit. And all of a sudden, the plane just goes like this. Right? And my husband dying. He thinks, okay, we're all going to die. He's afraid to fly anyway. So
A
that was that.
6-master plane, you know.
So, but anyways, it all turned out good.
Well, we were flying into a restricted airport in D.C.
Yeah.
You can't just fly into D.C. You have to have certain
Yeah, that's restricted
ratings
airspace,
right?
and all that. So, and the wind was so bad. The plane, I'm coming in sideways in Austin. I could hear him back there going, "We gonna be all right? We gonna be all right?"
He was sort of white. The words can't.
Sure, you needed to concentrate.
But you know, and
I don't know. I'll tell you in a minute.
He was ready to. My husband's ready to rent a car and drive home.
and then the joke was after that with everybody is, you know, if they were gonna sabotage us, they missed their opportunity. But you know, we're making light of this, but it's not because
Yeah, it's not funny. I'm actually, you're out of it. I'm in it, and
Well,
I do get death threats.
No, we're
and
still
I've
in-
gotten harassment and
No, we're
slander.
still in it. Believe you me. I've got. Believe you
Be
me.
watching your back. And you're going,
When this next book comes out, and I've already,
I can't wait to get my copy of that.
Well, Darlene got me off track on something. This woman that I dated, I was telling you about with this clown at the radio, when they started losing, when I started beating them pretty good, you know what they did? They had her go down and file for an EPO against me.
See,
Her?
No.
Oh.
Not her.
Oh, okay. I thought you pointed that way. I was like, what?
She's beating
Yeah,
me up.
okay.
But,
Well,
no.
see, that's what I think the sheriff's department did. I think they encouraged,
Well,
like, hey, instead of just go get that stuff tomorrow, why don't you go get an EPO?
well, here's what took place. They came and served it on me, which they do. And, you know, here I'm still under probation for these garbage charges that hadn't been thrown out yet. And I'm sitting there worried about that. So I called my probation officer, who was really helpful to me. This woman was a godsend. She's from the Augusta. If they need the head of probation, that's who they need to make do it. But anyway, I talked to her. She said, no problem. So fortunately, we were talking about how judges affect things. Fortunately, I got a good judge. And this judge worked with me. It wasn't the same clown that threw everything, or, you know, defended the other side. And when I went in there, I had subpoenaed any and all police records in the 2 counties where we live in Augusta. And she had 130 some people she had done this to. So we walked into court and I said to the judge, I said, she's filed 130 some EPOs against people. What do you think? And she wasn't there. She didn't show up. He says, I think she has some psychological problems, and threw it out. But had I had that first judge, had I had that other judge, I'd have probably ended up in jail. You know, because
I did.
yeah, well, that's my point.
And I didn't do anything.
What I'm trying.
Oh, well, I mean, they took away my money, and they took away all my stuff, so I can't make money. And then I have like $300,000 worth of equipment. So but no, I got no money. You know, what they do is they cut you off. If you didn't have money to fight it, would you have got justice? You have to have money.
I didn't get justice until I started fighting it myself. I had some of the best lawyers in the country.
Yeah.
And the lawyers,
what happened is the lawyers would end up being witnesses.
they were the problem. My lawyers were the problem.
Well,
They were
at the
helping
beginning,
me, yeah.
but when you had Vince,
Oh, yeah.
what happened is once he came up here and it started happening, they would start doing things in front of the lawyers, and then his lawyers would have to become witnesses.
But what I caution you on, and do not comment when I say this, do not comment. when you have an EPO against you, you can't own a firearm, you can't be around them, and they pull that crap on you.
Yeah.
You know?
Disarm me.
Yeah.
Yep.
So,
Got my constitutional right. I like
So
guns.
you spend 3 days in jail, no access to an attorney. They basically evict you without any due process, no hearing, no eviction
without
notice,
jurisdiction,
without
without just
I'm in the family court.
and family court.
You need to, when you talk to your lawyer, you need to talk to them about whether this judge had jurisdiction to even do that or not. Because I don't think they do, but it's not mine.
I believe the only way, and it wouldn't matter who owned the property or not. Typically, in my experience in the family court, not just EPOs, but family court, is, but even with EPOs and DVO, even if I didn't have a contract and all that stuff, my minor son's home. They normally, worry about the kid first. We have DVOs against each other. So even if it wasn't my place and I didn't pay for it, I have a child. That's when they can make one person leave, but she never lived there.
But you were not at any point allowed to give any evidence showing that A, I have a contract with her, B, I have been paying all the bills here to include the taxes and everything. You were never given an opportunity to show that you were.
I had it in my hand. They were able to show some evidence, and I had it in my hand. And he's like, just save that. You sounds like you got a pretty good lawsuit, so just go find you an attorney and handle it like
What's
that.
really funny about it, number one, I don't think the judge had jurisdiction to kick him out of the house. Number two, if she's not living there and you file an EPO, and I'm gonna disagree with Counselor Michael over there, and I'll talk to you about that later. We're not going to get into semantics, but you're wrong. But anyway, the fact that you're not in the romantic relationship, and she's living, how far is Pikeville from here?
2 hours.
2 hours?
Mm-hmm.
She's not there. The purpose of the DVO then, even if it was valid, would have been, you just can't get near her, and she's not supposed to come near you, not kick you out of the house.
Right.
Because she wasn't living there.
No, never did.
That's my point.
Never had more than 2 boxes of stuff inside the house.
Well, it sounds like.
And by the way, Judge, the utilities are in my name, right?
Yep, every utility, every
by the-
dollar.
Yeah,
Well, he's been paying the mortgage.
Yeah, straight to the mortgage
She
company.
hadn't paid the
so
mortgage.
here's,
Well, it would mess with her income. If I had paid her money, then she would have had income that she can't have to get her disability.
Oh, she's on disability.
Or she had an injury on a job that she gets a nice chunk of every month. But if she starts earning money, then that would affect that money. So I just paid the mortgage straight to the bank. And then I did.
But you were never allowed. Here's the point.
I haven't been back on the property since March 5th of last year.
Never allowed.
My son's glasses. They won't give us the glasses.
And you were never allowed to present any of this evidence.
None.
okay.
And now you have. Now,
But I did.
Wait. And now you still. They keep putting off that they're going to take you in front of a grand jury for what? What's?
For a felony criminal mischief of $3,000. They're saying that I punched holes in the ceiling. Remember that one I told you that was framed out?
And then that was you doing construction.
Yeah, it was just unfinished remodeling projects in a house that I invested $200,000 in. That I had a plea agreement. I was going to pay almost $3,000 if I took a plea.
Well,
years of probation.
There's got to be lawyers
And
out
a
there
gag
watching
order.
this, and I
need
got
one.
one for sure.
Let's
that
touch
would
it.
want to do
Let's
a
touch on
lawsuit
something.
on this.
Let's touch on something.
Okay.
Okay, we've talked about the fact that this is lawfare. Okay?
Yeah.
A minor version of it, I'm sorry. It really
No.
is. But it could become major with what the steel column's getting ready to do.
You know,
Okay,
even if it just happens to a normal average Joe that's not big dollars, it's destroying lives.
It is, and you
Well-
got a kid too. How old's your son?
He's 16 now.
Okay, but this.
But
Okay.
you ought to see what it does to a 16-year-old. I just left court over it.
Yeah.
Okay, and I'm gonna leave it at that. But here's the thing. There's this word that everybody whips around, lawfare. So we know what that is. We talked about that. But there's this other word that we're talking about, due process.
Which
We're
he
here-
has been.
I don't know what
Hold
that
on.
is.
We're gonna talk about that. We're screaming due process in this nation. We're talking about these illegals, it's due process. Let me give you an analogy that I had a discussion with a judge about recently.
I'm glad you brought that up
Okay,
because
so-
let me interrupt you real quick.
You did.
I want
well
you to
enough.
think about this. In this country right now, we have judges ordering that a gang member, known gang member from MS-13, okay, we know he's MS-13 because when they arrested him, he was with other gang members. You don't get to hang out with MS-13 unless you're a gang member too, okay, number one. Number two, he had the tats. Number three, he was here illegally. They're screaming that this guy needs to have it be brought back and have due process. But here we have a citizen who has
Bingo.
no real criminal background, successful businessman.
Help a lot of people, charitable.
Well, let me.
You raise
let
a
me
lot of
touch on
money for
this,
people
okay?
selling shirts.
First off, you were a federal agent. Did you deal with gangs?
Oh yeah.
Okay, they're violent as could be.
Oh, yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
so let me ask you something.
That guy gets due process.
I know a story that you told me once about you guys in a shootout when you were a federal agent, holding car mats up to the windows and stuff to try
Oh,
to
yeah.
keep the glass off you. I remember this.
That was during the LA riots. We were sitting.
Okay, was it? Yeah, LA riots. That was pretty violent. I'm old enough. I remember that.
I remember it. I was a
So
little kid.
okay,
I was in it.
Darlene, I know for a fact what would happen if you were sitting in your living room and somebody came crashing through your front door. The due process would be calling the coroner.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's.
Okay.
Well, I had that come close one night.
Okay.
That 6-hour night. I
But
might have had a Doug Harley situation because they kept guns
in
drawn.
trying to explain the difference between these MS-13 guys and somebody like him, these people come crashing through the border and start raping and killing and everything that our president's screaming about. Okay?
Right.
The due process that you would give them if they came crashing through your door is a 9mm, and that's end of it. And that's justified, it's right, and all that. Okay, you happen to know the prosecutor.
The castle doctrine.
The castle doctrine, right. So that's the due process there. But him, he gets nothing.
Nope.
He doesn't even get a lawyer and he's held in jail. But if he had due process, and he had due process in your case, because you don't know the legal system,
Right.
okay, due process in your case would have given you somebody like Austin as a lawyer who would go in and say, look, this is his house. You can't do this to him. He's crying on everything. What are you doing? Okay? That's due process. Due process means
Due process
going
is
through
that you
the
wouldn't-
processes
Right.
that are due to determine the proper effect of the law.
And not sitting in jail for 3 days without access to an attorney and be.
Or
that
Right,
there-
right after my business got shut down, I got kicked out of my home. Because also, this does a lot to you mentally, right?
Oh,
Oh yeah.
Okay, so you think I'm sharp as a tack after spending 3 days in jail, my property kicked off, all this, and all these sheriffs, every time I try to go for them to help, they're threatening to arrest me for disorderly conduct. I mean, matter of fact, I got PTSD from this whole situation of going through. I'm afraid to drive through I-75 and Laurel. Like, are they going to get me? You know, get threatened and
I'm
all that
laughing
stuff.
to keep from
Yeah,
crying because
yeah.
I know. He and I know we've been there.
So-
Well, remember, I'm happy. I'm good, so if something happens.
You can understand how the reactions go.
Yeah.
There was a woman that was raped up in Louisville. I called Darlene.
Real crime out there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I said, Darlene, the feds are prosecuting this woman. She was raped. They're trying to cover it up. Darlene says, I'm in. We go and we do a national press conference on, I think it was November 1st.
Oh yeah, this is the Karen Cipher case.
That's right.
2 days later, after we do a national
it's
press
3. Don't give 'em any-
3 days.
don't
3
cut 'em
days
short.
later, after we do a national press conference, that's when they raided his house.
I got 20 heavily armed guys with M4s, IRS agents. You want to know why the IRS shouldn't have bullets? This is why. The IRS shows up at my house with M4s and all kinds of guns, flak jackets. My 2 kids were sick, my wife and I were sick, but my office is out in the back. I've got other lawyers and staff there. Well, they're there with search warrants. My little 7-year-old opened the door. I'm standing there in my underwear, and they start tearing the house apart. Do you know what that did to my kids?
Damages.
Oh, huge.
Mm-hmm.
Huge. And we're just now getting one of them over it. The other one's going to be a while. But, you know, and that's 2 of the many. I had 2 kids pass away from this same nonsense. Not that incident, but. So I called Darlene and I said, Darlene, you're not going to believe this. And so she comes right over just right after they left. They didn't want anything of my financial records. They knew they already stole them. They had my secretary.
No, they took the case files of Karen Cipher.
That's
okay,
right.
the rape.
Wow. Oh, they wanted some records you had on somebody else.
And that's right. And then we had all kinds of. I took pictures of they left check stubs and check stuff
that you
if
wouldn't
it was a
want.
real IRS warrant they would have seized. And that,
Well,
that
there's
came
a
out.
prosecutor.
So they're obviously abusing their power.
A prosecutor's
their
public
own-
figure.
Yeah.
Is a public entity. There's a guy here in the London United States Attorney's Office. He was the prosecutor, one of the prosecutors in my case. They were meeting with my defense team that I had during my trial, representing myself.
Right.
They were meeting with him at night. The prosecutor in the last false indictment revealed all the information to me. These guys are untouchable. Darlene has a case, or several, there's a few cases with the prosecutor over yonder, where the prosecutor was having sex with accused women in exchange for keeping them out of jail. Well, one of them, he got her pregnant.
Oh, wow.
You know, and you know what they did? They took it in front of the grand jury there and whitewashed it.
Whitewashed it.
And you know what the Kentucky Bar Association did about it?
Nothing.
Nothing.
Nada.
Nada.
Nothing.
You know, like I said, the bar is to protect the lawyers from you.
I
the
am
bar,
not
the
impressed with the
DOJ.
Kentucky Bar Association.
And
Not
every
at all.
time I would tell Darlene about what I got going on with this prosecutor, she'd say, "Oh, you should hear what I got," and then we'd compare notes. And it's over and over and over. And there's no accountability. You're talking about the judges, you are spot on. Because if the judges do the jobs, if the judges do the job, this can't happen.
Yeah, it can't happen.
You know, Scalia, I had, back in 2007, I was lucky enough to have a lunch with him. United States Justice, Supreme Court Justice. He said to me, and him and Posner both called me kiddo, which was weird. And they didn't know because it was years apart and all that, but Scalia says, "Well, kiddo, you know, the truth of it is," he said, "it doesn't matter if a guilty or if an innocent person gets convicted as long as they have due process." Well, that due process is what you need because it protects you. And what he said was, I was so furious I want to spit on him. But when I thought about it for a while, he was right. Our system is darn near perfect in the U.S. The only thing not perfect about it is accountability and the lawyers.
Right.
And the judges are supposed to keep an eye on it.
Well,
They don't.
and the cops. There's,
Well, let's
Wouldn't
face it.
happen without the judges, though.
That's true.
Let's face it. How many times has Austin stepped on somebody? Your husband is one of the most honest people there is. He's a really good prosecutor here. How many times has he said this isn't going to fly?
oh, yeah.
You know, so it's not the cops. The cops are the cops. They're in a war zone, and I got to tell you, I don't want anybody to take that I am anti-law enforcement.
And I'm not either.
I think they're the
Yeah,
best.
same
A
here.
good cop is the best in the world. There is nobody better.
Just don't like corrupt cops.
But a bad cop, you talk to a good cop. Darlene, you got a lot of friends that are cops. You talk to any one of them and say, "What do you think about bad cops?" They hate
Hate
them.
them.
Yeah, because
We are
it's making
almost,
them look bad.
we are almost out of time. Okay, so I just want to say, I hope that this helps you.
Right.
I hope that the viewers out there, let's back this guy up. I'm also hoping that some of you in Pulaski County, when the citizens got united, because we stopped literally over 60 million gallons of toxic waste coming through, you know, compliments of the mayor and the mayor and his minions in Pulaski County, you know, bringing this in, running it through a defective wastewater treatment plant. Once the citizens united and stood up and took a chance and stood together and joined forces and demonstrated, showed up at the city council meetings, we got to stop. You can't fight City Hall. You all out there, and a lot of you are contacting me, telling me how afraid you are.
Rightfully so.
Courage is contagious, though. Courage is contagious. I want that on my tombstone, okay? I'm telling you, once you guys get united there, you start holding peaceful demonstrations, you start getting the mainstream media here, okay, in London, you start uniting and get rid of these people, okay? You already got rid of some. I think the chief of police resigned and a couple
Clerk and the councilwoman that never showed up.
Yeah. So, courage is contagious. If you guys, even though you're afraid, start organizing. Get with Crime with Bobby. He's doing a
Can I
real
throw a
good
little
job.
plug out there real quick?
Yes.
Man, I think a big thing that's helping the movement, it started with the Doug Harless situation. So make sure to go follow on Facebook. Join the group Justice for Doug.
Yeah.
So we get Justice for Doug Harless. And then because of that situation and all the things going on, it was like, you're right, it's not an isolated incident. It's a corrupt system, so multiple things are happening. So I started a group, Justice for Laurel County, London, Kentucky. So if you'd like to follow more closely, or if you have a story to tell, or you want a voice in London or Laurel, go to the page, follow the group, make sure to follow Justice for Doug. Together, united, exposure, right?
Yes.
Exposure.
Well, Kentucky's motto is "United we stand, divided we fall." It's on all their plaques.
Let's take our country back.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's take, you guys.
One town at a time.
Take Laurel County back. The folks in Pulaski
Let's
County
take it back.
did it. They did a good job. They organized. I mean, folks in Pulaski County did it. You and people in London, and I'm telling you, over in Letcher County, You know, Elizabeth, Hillbilly Crime, she's doing a good job over there. Those people are getting organized too. That's what you gotta do, folks. That's what you gotta do. Okay, we have 1 minute left. Thank you then, Jim Fowler and Rick Coffman.
Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
And everybody behind the scenes, and we want to thank MBR TV, our TV folks, for filming this. And we want to thank all the people watching Truth or Politics. And I will post Jim Fowler's whole interview we did, a whole hour of his whole story below this. You guys need to go watch that too. And we will see you next time on Truth or Politics. Thanks.
Thank you.